as a young veterinarian in the Massachusetts area, and then throughout my career after that, I've worked closely with the state organizations to go out and talk to, high school advanced biology clubs and, universities and middle schools, grade schools, to, let the kids know why animals are used in research. And there have been times when actual scientists, when I did it in the sense of my own science insofar as I could, but my science is a thin page in a big library. And the question is, who is representing all of the rest of that library? The answer to that is, well, it's typically not the scientists that are doing that. They're really reluctant. They're acting as a detached, insular elite. And that to me is very, very troubling. I have felt throughout my career, but more recently, lately especially, that one of the things that the public really doesn't appreciate about science is that experimentation is not always productive in the way we hope it to be productive. The public, I think, would have a high support for science if it behaved in the cartoon that they expect, and that is, you put one block on top of the next block on top of the next block, and you get this progressively higher tower. That's not the way it works. Science is more like giving children a handful of sand and tell them to throw it to create a pile. Some of that sand sticks to the top of the pile. The rest of that sand becomes the angle of repose. And the pile eventually gets higher and higher. But you don't get the top of the pile without everything on the side. So we as a public fund the scientists to do science. And we know, scientists know, there's a 30, 40, 50% success rate in the hypotheses they test. And the rest is just the fabric that's holding the center of the pile. So if the public doesn't understand this, and if the public doesn't understand science, how can scientists expect them to fund science in America at $31 billion a year? That's just the biomedical science. I think the question goes beyond that to science much more broadly. I mean, if you're funded by the public to do engineering science, this, that, or the other science, whatever you are doing, if you're doing it with public money, I think there is an obligation to be the town hall speaker talking to the public. And, it just hasn't worked on a volunteer basis. There are not that many scientists willing to take the time to do it because they are busy and overcommitted people. But that's not the only mechanism. You could ask others in your laboratory to do it, or as I have said in several audiences, and I don't know whether I've ever said this at a primer meeting in front of primer audiences, it's my belief that really the requirement to do that should be linked to funding. And so, if you look at just a simple metric, going back to just the NIH, if you tell an investigator, if you get $1 million grant, for every $100,000 in that grant, you or someone in your laboratory is going to give a 1-hour public lecture of any dimension, a radio show, Rotarian club, a high school class, whatever, 1 hour per $100,000. So they are committed to 10 hours a year in their laboratory. And, that converts a $31 billion budget to 310,000 hours of public education. So would we ever see that? No, we see, minimal scientific expression and interaction with the public. So the journalists have done a much better job, and scientists are much better about talking to the big venue sources. But it's only the fabulous studies and the studies with glitz. It has to meet sort of the journalistic patina, which, as we all know, is getting increasingly distorted in our age. So all this other great science that is the basis, that buttress on the angle of repose, there's no discussion of that. And the public needs to know about the whole process. Scientists need to step up to the plate.